I would like to bring this meeting of Sonoma City Council to order. We want to begin our meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Chen, could you please lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would like the city clerk, Rebecca Barr, take roll call, please.
Councilmember Lowe?
Here.
Councilmember Agramonte?
Here.
Vice Mayor Barnett?
Here.
Councilmember Felder?
Here.
Mayor Dean?
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Report on the closed section. Today we started out in the closed section at 5 p.m. So far, I don't have any of the reportable items to share with everybody. Next one is approval of the agenda. I would like to ask on the staff and the city council if any item we want to change for its order. Sounds like a no.
Seeing none, I'll move approval of the agenda.
All right.
I second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Lowe?
Aye.
Councilmember Agramonte?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Barnett?
Aye.
Councilmember Felder?
Aye.
Mayor Dean?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Agenda number 1, comments from the public. This is the time for everyone making a comment for the items not appearing on today's agenda. So if you have any comments not appearing on this agenda, it's the time. It is recommended you keep your comments 3 minutes or less. Thank you.
Good evening, City Council and Mayor. My name is Ron Sondergaard. I'm the new pastor at Grace Baptist Church over on Laswin Street, and I just wanted to introduce myself and looking forward to being a part of the Sonoma community and excited to see what ways we can work together to make this city a safe and beautiful place for all our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Any other comment? All right, looks like none, and then I will close comments from the public. Agenda number 2, meeting dedications. How are you? No. None? Okay. Let's move to agenda number 3, presentation. 3.1, introduction of our new Public Works Director, Michael Berger.
Mike and Chris and Oriana, why don't you come up here? Good evening, Mayor Ding and City Council members. First off, before I introduce Mike, I wanted to do a special recognition of Chris Pegg, who is our operations manager. We've been without a public works director. We had an interim public works director, but he was only working 2 days a week. So since January, Chris has stepped up and put in a lot of extra hours and done a tremendous job for the city, just kind of being the other interim public works director. And I just wanted to give him special recognition. I also wanted to recognize Oriana Hart, who's our what's your title? I'm sorry.
So long, administrative and project manager.
Anyway, and all the public works team, the supervisors, the staff, they've done a tremendous job during this interim process, and so I just wanted to give them special recognition. So now, I'm so pleased to introduce Michael Berger, the city's new Public Works Director. Mike comes to us with over 30 years of civil engineering experience as a designer, contractor, construction manager, and operations manager. Mike most recently worked for the City of Napa Department of Public Works, where he was the operations manager overseeing fleet, facilities, electrical, contract, paving, and sign striping divisions. Mike has been a registered professional civil engineer since 1995. And when we were interviewing Mike, I was so delighted to learn that he grew up in Sonoma and still has family living here. Mike and his family are quite well known here in Sonoma. It seems that every time I mention his name in meetings, someone says, "Oh, I know Mike. He was a year behind me or ahead of me in school." After attending Santa Rosa Junior College, Mike transferred to the University of California, Davis, yay, that's where I came from, and earned his Bachelor of Science degree in civil engineering. He currently lives in Napa with his wife, Rosie, and 2 children, and we're just so pleased to have Mike heading up our Public Works division and joining our team here. And would you like to say a couple words?
Of course. For starters, thank you so much. And, it's only my 3rd day, but coming in, I did know 2 of the people on the interview panel when I was here in Sonoma as in high school, and a couple years after I was a volunteer firefighter, and recognized Wayne Wyrick and Steve Aker right there on the panel interviewing me. It was great. It was a little bit of a homecoming. And the city means something to me. It always has. It always will. And so it's real easy to come in and be a part of the community. And I'm looking real forward to utilizing all my experience in civil engineering and public works, and to work with the existing team, which pleasantly is, it seems like a great group of people. So I'm looking real forward to turning it into a better organization. It's already a great organization, so it's going to be harder to make it better, but I'm looking forward to the challenge, and I can't wait. It was great meeting you all, and thank you.
Thank you. Welcome and a thank you, Michael. Let's move on to next agenda item, number 4, consent calendar. If any items you want to pull out or put a different order.
Mayor Ding, we'd like to pull item 4.6.
Okay. That is 4.6.
And I would like to pull 4.5.
5. Okay. So that 4.6, you want to move to the next meeting or the today?
No, we want to pull it off the consent calendar just to discuss.
Okay, that's good. All right. So the 2 items we want to pull out. Any other? None? All right, we'd like to approve the rest of the agenda items. Who can? Oh. Let me open to the public. Any in the comments? Looks like none. Let me close the public comments.
I'd like to make a motion to approve 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, and 4.4, and 4.7 of the consent agenda.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Lou?
Aye.
Councilmember Agramonte?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Barnett?
Aye.
Councilmember Felder?
Aye.
Mayor Dean?
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Let's go back to agenda number 4.5. Adopt a resolution approving of consenting to using the city streets for the July the 4th parade on the Monday, July the 4th, 2022.
Yes. Thank you, Mayor Ding. I pulled this. I think this is obviously great news that we're going to have a 4th of July parade again. It's been, I guess it'll be 3 years this summer since we've had one, so that's very exciting. Councilman Felder and I serve on the Parklet committee together, and I do think going forward before this parade, we have to think about how we're going to treat the parklets during the parade. In a perfect world, I don't want these parklets to become sort of private spaces, you know, with high-priced tickets to gain admission to the parklets. And so the reason why I pulled this, I just sort of want to highlight that potential issue. And, you know, whether parklets are used for, you know, senior citizen seating or disabled seating or kids or something, I just don't, obviously the parklets are still going to be there this July 4th. And we've never had parklets for a 4th of July parade. And so they're going to be different. We're going to have to figure out how to handle that. And I don't want them to become like VIP seating.
Okay.
So,
That's great. It's wonderful, finally.
and that's all. And I would love to make a
All right.
motion to, we have to
The
do.
public, yeah. Let me open to the public. Looks like none. Let me close the public, the comments. Who can, oh, yeah, you moved, approved.
I move that we approve item 4.5.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Lowe?
Aye.
Councilmember Agramonte?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Barnett?
Aye.
Councilmember Felder?
Aye.
Mayor Ding?
Aye,
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
thank you. That's great. Agenda number 4.6, adopt an ordinance amending Sonoma Municipal Code 7.25.020 to remove menthol as an approved flavor for tobacco products.
Rebecca Barr is actually going to take this. She had we had this sort of thought as we were bringing this forward, and Rebecca's going to discuss what our ideas are about this one.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. As this item was brought before you for introduction at the April 6th meeting and was placed on tonight's for adoption. And as it's kind of interesting because I was actually standing in 7-Eleven buying a Diet Pepsi, and the person in front of me bought cigarettes. And I started looking at their wall and I noticed how many menthol products they have. And the reason we asked to pull this is because there's no requirement that we notice to the individuals, the retailers that hold those 12 tobacco licenses. But if we realize that there could be a substantial financial impact to those retailers if this goes into effect in 30 days from tonight, and they still have a stock of product or they've got an automatic shipment that they haven't been able to talk with their distributors. So staff would like to bring this back with a future effective date, possibly September 1. And that way that'll give us the opportunity to notice those retailers. Then they can make arrangements with their distributors to do if they can sell back their product or to sell what they have without having a substantial financial impact to them. So that would be staff's request to the council.
That's
good.
may I
Yeah.
comment? That seems very reasonable, I
Reasonable.
think. Obviously, we
That's
don't want to burden anyone, even though we're trying to improve the health of our, you know, we have a strong ordinance that's renowned, actually, and recognized, and cities came along with us from many years ago, and the state now is looking at the same thing, but there has to be some type of a fairness in this as well. So that we can't do anything with it tonight, we have to come back and,
It'll be brought back if you choose to make a date, say that it's going to be effective September 30th or September 1st or October 1st, whatever date the council would like to make it. We thought 90 days would be a good time of notice for them so that they can make those
that
changes.
sounds good.
So what we can do is we can bring it back at the next meeting on consent it'll have to be reintroduced because it's a substantive change to the ordinance, just on consent with the date certain that it would go to September 1st if that's council's choice, and then it would be approved at the mid-May meeting. And then we would go forward with noticing and talking with the retailers.
Does one of us need to make a motion?
I don't
That's
think
not
so.
necessary?
I think this direction to staff would be sufficient. If there was
consensus as to the date when enforcement should be.
Whatever the September the 1st or September the 3rd, the 30th, maybe we check it, the inventory or whatever. There's almost no inventory, and then we can start it early. Yeah.
That's 4 months.
This was the second reading, right? So do we have to start over?
It'll come back at the next one. There's no public
Okay.
noticing as far as like legal noticing. So there's not where we have to wait the 10 days for legal noticing. It will just come back on consent at the next meeting. And then it'll be, so between the 30 days of approval and then the effective date, it'll be approximately 90 days for the staff to notice them and for them to take care of their orders.
If there's any way to time it with the opening of school, that would
yeah.
be my suggestion. Unfortunately, that keeps moving up. It used to be after Labor Day, but that was back in the day. So that might be the end of August, or the beginning of September. But my suggestion is to put it around the opening of school, because that's exactly the group we want to inhibit from getting hooked on flavored tobacco.
Yeah. Yes, good.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, good with that.
September 1st.
All right. Let me open to the public. Any comments for this item? None? Okay, let me now close for the public comments.
So I guess we got a
Yeah,
direction.
we can direction. Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you so much for bringing that up.
Let's move on to agenda number 5, public hearing. Today we don't have any public hearing. Agenda number 6, regular calendar, city policy. Agenda number 6.1, consideration, discussion, and a possible action to adopt resolution re-establishing the position of the city historian and rescinding resolution 04-2008 and provide direction to staff to commence an application process to fill vacant position of city historian.
Thank you. David Storr, our planning director, is going to take this.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. David Storer. The resolution before you tonight, an action request, is to rescind an old resolution from the 2008 period, which establishes the position of city historian. The resolution before you tonight only makes 2 changes. One, to implement what's been going on over the years, although admittedly we've only had 2 city historians since that time. The change in the ordinance will be to add the ability for people outside of the city limits to be applicants for the process. And then secondly, we've memorialized the action of the mayor and vice mayor to conduct interviews through those application process and make a formal recommendation to the council as has been done. We are requesting your direction tonight to begin that process to seek applications to fill the position of historian. And if you want to get into the weeds, we would go to items number 2 and number 4 in the current resolution. In your staff report, I've underlined those changes along with staff to give you that direction or recommendation. This concludes staff's report, and we're happy to receive questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question, David. In the resolution, under the duties and responsibilities, line H, coordinate the responsibility for accepting donations of historical documents and items. Was that always in the duties?
Well, I can say
Or
it's in the original resolution of
Okay.
2006. We haven't changed anything. Only items 2 and 4 did we provide amended language.
Okay, so that particular duty do we have the ability to remove that line?
Yes.
That seems to
this
sort
is
of
an-
be
yeah.
the job of the Sonoma Valley Historical Society.
So, yeah, that would be the pleasure of the council to modify it. I just wanted to
Okay.
put a static document there for you to look.
Okay,
And certainly anything on this could be changed as directed by the council.
okay, thank you.
Thank you. Madeline, maybe you have these kind of share with everyone.
Yeah,
of
and
cities.
I think this was out there for everybody to look at, you know. I did believe me, it's not
Research.
scientific, it's unsophisticated. And I went online like all old folks do, and I looked at every city. And the list of cities here, we have 9 in the county, and how the issue of history and also preservation. So I outlined what I found in other cities. It is not, you know, it's not factual. I didn't go to Harvard to get this correct, but I did the best I could, and this gives us an idea. Cloverdale has Historical Society with museum. There is preservation, but it's handled by the city. Cotati, Historical Society with museum, preservation with the city. Healdsburg, Historical Society with museum, preservation is handled with the city. Petaluma, Historical Library and Museum, Historic and Cultural Preservation Committee, which is with the city. Rohnert Park Historical Society Preservation with the city. Santa Rosa Historical Society and County Museum, Cultural Heritage Center. Sebastopol Western Sonoma County Historical Society and Museum, and I think that's actually with the county. City of Sonoma, as you know, Historical Society and Museum. Sonoma League for Preservation, and that, and number 9, Windsor Historical Society and Museum, various city preservation efforts. So I think I can't find it, but I think there is a committee actually in Petaluma, the Heritage, Historic and Cultural Preservation Committee. So this is great because now I found out more about this, and so I just wanted to share that with others. And as I said, it's not scientific, it's not real sophisticated, it's just the best I could do by looking at our websites. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Yeah, let me open to public.
Is it on?
It's on.
Thank you. Then there was one. Good evening, Mayor Ding, Vice Mayor Bartlett, and council members. It's been said that justice, in addition to being blind, should be swift. Well, when it comes to democracy, it should not be blind for sure, and it's often ponderous. And this is what we have come to in this process, and I congratulate all of you for your patience and your attention to all of the details, and to the city staff. And I want to say, I support the city staff's recommendation with the Kelso-Barnett modification, absolutely. And Councilmember Agramonte, those cities are not Sonoma. We're special. We have an alcalde. We have an artist treasure. We have a city historian, j'espère. So I do still support strongly the idea that a person from the community, from the broader community, that's brilliant, the way it should be, because we really are Sonoma Valley. Whether we like it or not, we're not just this little enclave in the city limits. So I congratulate you again, and I want to tell you I heartily support the city staff's recommendation, and I appreciate the many discussions they've tolerated with me. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any more public comment? All right, let me now close the public comment. First of all, I want to say thank you. Bob, you did a great thing, and you always kept your eyes open for every important items on our agenda. And also, I want to take this opportunity to thank you for everyone, the local residents, history and the lovers, and then you made a contribution to our the city. And Agramonte just mentioned about other cities, those kind of, yes, that is right. and each in the city, they honor the history. But Sonoma here is special. So we take this special opportunity to honor our history, to read our history and understand today, and also, and we look forward to the future. This is a part of our important thing our city government needs to do. And a historian, yeah, basically it's kind of a person. It's kind of honorable, and also it's kind of role model for everyone. So we want to work together, and then started to interview any applicant, and to seek this very, very special, unique position in the future. Any more comments? Yes.
Well, to begin with, I certainly like the idea of having a person involved in this city as a city historian. But it brings to mind a couple of things that have concern to me on how we move forward with it. And the first is that I would like to have a very clear indication of what qualifications are required for the person that accepts this position. It's one thing to just kind of be a good old guy that's been around town and knows a little of what's going on in Sonoma, but I think if we're looking for the position of city historian, I think it should have something with more formal training involved to go along with the knowledge of the city itself. And the other thing that concerns me is in the list of duties and responsibilities, I would like us to be very careful that we are not treading on other organizations or efforts that are taking place in this city that have been done with proper care and diligence. And so in addition to the item H on the coordinating responsibility of accepting donations, I think it might be well to remove item A as well on the coordination of identification, maintenance, and inventory of records, because we have a historical society that is doing a great job on both of those things, and I don't want to diminish their role. So that's my comments.
Do you have any more comments? Okay. So yes, definitely. And our local nonprofit organization, Historical Society, and the League, they play some of the government position and for the city residents. And they working hard, raise the money by themselves, but they took a very important job. At this time, we really appreciate. I will not mention each wonderful person. I just say, thank you for the community and our historic keepers. Thank you.
I have a question. Does the city historian, or did the city historian have a budget?
I don't believe so.
Okay.
So the property that right now, the Depot Park and the museum, basically is the city's property, right? And then right now we are under the lease, or okay, yeah, please. Okay,
Yes, we have a lease.
okay, all right, yeah, that is the lease, yeah, that I see.
And through the mayor, that also includes Marcy House.
Yes, Marcy House. Yeah, Marcy House I familiar because used to belong to the sister city. We couldn't have the financial ability to maintain that Marcy House, changing the roof. So we had to hand it over to but good thing is we hand it over to the good hands and the Historic Society. They keep it right now as an archive research center.
So, Mr. Mayor, where are we going now? I'm sorry, I'm hearing.
Yeah, you have the more comments?
No,
No?
I'm confused right now.
All right.
Mr. Mayor, we could entertain a motion, and if I'm reading the tea leaves correctly, it would be a motion to adopt the resolution as presented by staff with the elimination of items A through H. A and H. Sorry. Let's get just rid of the whole thing, right? H and A, and we would do the reordering of that alphabet.
That's great.
And I would also add that I would also like some definition of the qualifications for that position.
That direction, Mr. Mayor, could be in the direction to staff, not in the actual motion itself. When we when we create the application, and then the mayor and vice mayor can look for that in that application process.
Thank you.
Okay.
Did I hear a
You want a
motion?
motion?
Okay, then I'll second.
Wait, we didn't get a motion, Mr. Mayor. I kind of gave you the thought
Yeah,
of the
maybe
motion.
you can put the
Well,
motion.
I will move then to accept the changes
All right.
that Councilmember Felder suggested, as well as, I think it was H? Wait,
A
and H.
A and H,
Yes.
Okay.
not through A to H.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
Roll call, please.
Councilmember Lowe,
Aye.
Councilmember Agarmati,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Barnett,
Aye.
Councilmember Felder,
Aye.
Mayor Ding.
Aye.
Thank you. The motion carries unanimously.
Thank you. Agenda number 6.2, consideration, discussion, and a possible action regarding amendments to Sonoma Municipal Code, Chapter 2.02, campaign contribution limitations, and the direction on the possible changes to voluntary expanding, ceiling, and the contribution limits of a possible repeal of the Sonoma Municipal Code, Chapter 2.02, in whole, so the campaign contributions would be governed by general state law.
Mayor Ding, Assistant City Attorney David Ruderman is going to take this for us.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor Ding, members of the City Council. Before you this evening is Chapter 2.02 of the Sonoma Municipal Code. This is the ordinance that governs campaign contribution limits and a expenditure ceiling for local city council races. We wanted to bring this before you this evening in anticipation of election season. The current campaign contribution limit is $100. A person can contribute no more than $100 to an individual candidate in monetary contribution, or $400 in a non-monetary contribution, so volunteer work, etc. If the candidate accepts the voluntary ceiling on expenditures of $10,000, then they can raise $200 from each individual and up to $800 in non-monetary contributions. These limits were put in place in 2002. A lot of things have happened since 2002. Generally, campaign contribution limits are subject to something less than strict scrutiny by the courts. It is a First Amendment issue. Exceedingly low campaign contribution limits can be unconstitutional in violation of the First Amendment. And the same especially goes for expenditure limits. Those are subject to strict scrutiny, which often means they're very difficult to enact. Since the city adopted this ordinance, state law, the state legislature has taken some action, because prior to 2021, if a city didn't impose its own limits, then there simply were none. And now the state has come in and it passed AB 571, which imposes the same limits on city council races and county board of supervisor races and other county-wide offices as are imposed on assembly and state senate races. So those contribution limits are indexed to inflation, which is generally a good thing. Courts like to see that. And so the current contribution limit, I believe, is $4,900. If a city were to use those sort of I'll call them the default rules for campaign contribution limits, then the Fair Political Practices Commission is the enforcement arm that would do enforcement of those limits. Or if the city were to continue with its own contribution limits, then the city has to take on that responsibility. And the state will not do that. They will not enforce a local campaign contribution limit. The staff has done some surveying of other jurisdictions and what their current contribution limits are. Those are in the staff report. Generally, they are either a little bit or a lot higher than the city of Sonoma's. There also are other resources available. I believe Common Cause did a survey back in 2016, it's a little dated now, that looked at campaign contribution limits statewide. I know from your city attorney that the city of Novato just updated theirs, which are indicated on the in the staff report. So essentially, the council has three options. It can do nothing and leave these low campaign contribution limits in place with the associated legal risk of doing so. It can amend the ordinance, and if it wants to do that, we should have a discussion about what limits it wants to set, whether it wants to keep this expenditure ceiling there or not. In my research, expenditure ceilings are a minority position with cities. And then the third option would be to repeal the ordinance. And if we were to repeal it, then we would be governed by the default state law that governs state senate and assembly races with that $4,900 individual campaign contribution limit, as well as the other limitations that we itemized in the staff report, many of which are probably more detailed than we necessarily need to get into. So with that, I'll conclude my report. Happy to answer questions and contribute to the discussion.
Thank you.
Mayor Ding, I have some questions.
Sure.
I mean, I don't know,
Yeah.
were you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Go ahead.
thank you. So you're saying there were 2 cities that actually went along with the state out of 9? Is that what I'm seeing?
From the survey, again, similar to your
My
survey of
study.
city historians, ours was not a exceedingly scientific one. It was one looking at other jurisdictions in the area.
Thank you.
And I would bet that many of those, the ones that have the state limit because they just never adopted a campaign contribution limit.
That's actually correct.
Thank you.
And the whole purpose for the law was to go after cities who had no contribution limit, because it turned out almost 70, I think over 70% of the cities had none. And the idea was to rein in cities that had none, especially those that were renowned for some corruption. I won't name them because they know where I live, but you know, ours are exceedingly low. I'm looking at this chart. I can see some of them have just not taken this up yet this year, or might not. I think the elimination of the expenditure ceiling is smart. It's unenforceable, and currently, right now, so here are my questions. I mean, I'll get to my comments after public comment, but you know, could you tell us what, if we had decided to, let's say, eliminate the expenditure ceiling and modify the contribution limit, what else would we have to change in our ordinance in order to now comply with AB 571?
Well, we just have to have an ordinance that governs local campaign contribution limits, and then we are not subject to AB 571. But in order to impose a campaign contribution limit that's defensible under the First Amendment, we would want something that is indexed to inflation, that is not substantially lower than surrounding jurisdictions. We would want the courts also look at whether or not the limit on individuals is different from the limit on independent expenditure committees, like a PAC. Those should be different.
Well, you can't limit an independent
No,
expenditure committee.
you can't limit the contribution to the independent expenditure committee, but you can limit what the independent expenditure committee contributes to the candidate, a political party, for example.
Well, okay, I'm not gonna get in the weeds on that,
Okay.
but,
And then the other issue would be to ensure that, and ours doesn't do this, but to ensure that volunteer work doesn't count toward the monetary contribution limit.
yeah, well, volunteer work is not if somebody is legitimately a volunteer, like they're gonna walk precincts for you or they're gonna make phone calls for you, that is not an in-kind contribution under the state law. What's an in-kind contribution under the state law is if somebody prints your flyers for you, okay? And the state does not look at in-kind contributions and monetary contributions any differently. It's in the same column. It's just like, Mayor Ding is an accountant, and he can tell you income is income. If you're a W-2 employee or if you're a 1099 employee, that's your income, right? So, I would tell you that, full disclosure, you might not even know this. I do this for a living. I mean, that's what I do. I'm a political consultant. You knew somebody had to be one, and I guess it's me. So I know way too much about this, and so I apologize in advance for digging in on this thing. But no one else, according to my attorney, and I use a major statewide attorney that does, all the governor, the Democratic Party, everybody, no one has a differentiation between in-kind contributions and monetary contributions in their ordinance. So I would suggest that we, at the very minimum, get rid of that. The other thing is that we don't have any enforcement mechanism in our ordinance. And that's what I was sort of getting at with my question, because under Assembly Bill 571, basically what the FPP says is you're on your own. So if you come up with your own limits, you've got to enforce them. So if you're using the state's limits, then the state enforces them. And they have an agency that does so, and in fact, they are bringing on more people because of this and because of this particular new law. So we have no mechanism for enforcement. I just went through a campaign, so it's very fresh in my knowledge. And, we submit, all of our paperwork and so forth, but if somebody wants to complain, there really isn't anything in our ordinance that tells us, like, you're going to get fined or that's a misdemeanor or anything like that. So we would have to do more than just change the limits. We would actually have to add a whole enforcement piece that then we would have to manage, possibly out of the city clerk's office. So I think that's something to really consider as a trade-off in terms of, whether or not we want to be not just enforcement, but somehow adjudicate the complaints, because you have to then send something back and say, yeah, we found your complaint to be valid or invalid, or we've got, so that gets into a whole big thing that we may not want to get involved in. We may, who knows. So the other thing is, I don't have a big fear. A lot of people said, oh gosh, that's an awful lot of money, if you're using the assembly race as the number. But let's get back to this whole concept of in-kind contributions. So if somebody decided, hey, you can use my office, I'm not going to rent it for 2 months, and you can use my office for your campaign. So you don't have your yard signs and paraphernalia, hanging out in your dining room. That's an in-kind contribution, and it has to be fair market value. You can't just say, it's worth $5. It's not. It's whatever it would be if you went out and you rented that space. So that space in Sonoma for 2 months could very easily be $4,000, could be $5,000 for 2 months. you're not literally paying for it, but someone is in-kinding you rental space. So I bring that up just as an example because people go like, oh, that's so much money. It's not that much money if somebody, you know, in a situation like that where somebody is doing an in-kind contribution. Under the current scheme that we have, they wouldn't even be able to do it because it would exceed $800, which is the maximum amount if you take the voluntary expenditure ceiling, and they wouldn't be able to let you use the office because it's worth more than that. So we're putting ourselves in a position where, you know, simple things like office space or printing materials and so forth, which actually have gone up a lot in price, especially over the last year with supply chain issues, it's really not that much money. The other thing is, as far as people giving money, people, you know, the campaign, all campaigns have, you know, these higher ceilings, but the average person doesn't, you know, doesn't necessarily give that much money. And I don't want to inhibit someone from being able to do some of, you know, have somebody say, I'll do your printing, or I'll do, you know, someone offered to do the printing for me. I said, you can only do $800 worth. I mean, it was really absurd. $800 to print something didn't go that far. And it is, I do think, I've talked to several attorneys that do think that we are running the risk of being, violating people's First Amendment rights. And I don't, I'm a big believer in the First Amendment. I like all the amendments, let me just put it that way. But the first is one of my absolute favorites. It was the first, and it's one of the better ones. So the other thing is, using the state's mechanism, we use the state's mechanism for other things. So, for example, currently, I wrote to your colleague, and because I asked him at the end of my campaign, what I have some funds left over. What do I do with them? Well, under the state law, as written in your staff report, you can see it lines it out very clearly. All of the things that you can do. You close it, you open it, you can transfer it, whatever. So I wrote, because I didn't know, I went and looked at our law, and I looked, and I couldn't find anything, and I'm like really paranoid about ever breaking any one of these laws, especially because everyone's going to look at me and go like, oh yeah, great, you're a great consultant, you broke that Sonoma law over there, right? Maybe all over YouTube or something. So what I received back was basically that there's nothing in the Sonoma Municipal Code, and what Mr. Walter referred me to was the Fair Political Practices Commission and the state law. And he said, so just use that. And I'm like, okay. So I went back and I used the state law for transferring my funds and doing all of this, as is written out here. But that's going to go away. If we don't adopt, if we rescind our policy, then we can use the state law, which has all of these, you know, mechanisms. If we don't do that, then we have to add this stuff into our ordinance because there's nothing in there right now that even tells you what to do. So I think it's a lot of work. I'm not opposed to a lot of work, but I just don't want people to get the sense that, oh, all we have to do is raise the contribution limit, get rid of the voluntary expenditure ceiling, and we're good to go. There's a lot of unanswered questions that need to then be put in the ordinance. And so I think it's a trade-off between, you know, getting to that higher limit. Yes, the contribution limit is higher, but it's pretty clear what you have to do. It relieves staff of having to really deal with it. I mean, any number of people know how to interpret the Fair Political Practices Commission law on Assembly and Senate. You can call the Secretary of State, you can call the county office, anyone can help you. I think that's a benefit to candidates. So I was going to ask questions, I ended up speaking. I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I apologize. I gave you fair warning that I was a little ramped up on this, but Anyway, thank you. And if I have further comments, I will, but thank you for your
No,
indulgence.
to the extent that was a question, yes, we
It
would
was a
want-
question.
There are no currently enforcement mechanisms in the
Right.
ordinance.
There are none.
So, as you can, Sandra, Councilmember Lowe and I had a very robust
We did.
discussion this morning. So if you had an $800 printing bill and you couldn't afford it, that's what that $10,000 pays for. What is it, less than 10%? I mean, at the 10% of 10,000 is what, 1,000? So it's $800. All you do is okay, we're in a whole new world with social media, but I'm talking old school also. You choose a different type of paper. You choose something maybe not color, maybe black and white. That's what you do in a campaign. You plan for all of those things when you run a campaign. I have a concern, number one, with the, I think it's the, well, I know Kevin Mullen, I knew his dad. I think what he's making, this bill really is valuable at the 40,000 foot level. We're at the $400 and $500 level. I agree we need probably to raise the campaign contributions to $500, whatever fits us into which would be constitutional. And here right on 460, we all know about this thing. It's called non-monetary contributions. And to your question, and I think Sandra, you explained that. If a lawyer knew he would be paid $700 to walk my precinct an hour, that would be great, but that's not what people do. They volunteer. That's not non-monetary contribution. It's just a volunteer. There are things here in Sonoma, I can only tell you at the 400 or 500 foot level, I've never experienced anyone renting an office, and possibly you would. And I agree with you about the market rate. You know, obviously we couldn't afford a space, especially if you maybe wanted to have a bathroom included. So that's not ever been my experience here. And I'm scared. I'm really scared about that. And here is what it says. What is a monetary contribution? You already know that. It's a loan to the campaign from a member of the candidate's family. Non-monetary is in-kind donations, of which it's called, and I think Sandra, she shared that, are donations of goods and services or time. For example, if you need a web designer who is going to be working for you, maybe they charge you, I don't know, $500 an hour or $250. I have no idea what they do. I just found out yesterday about everything going into the cloud, so I'm out of my area right now. So tangible goods include things like equipment, books, cars, clothing, furniture, and supplies. That's what that is. Has nothing to do with the other things that were discussed here. Here's what I'm afraid of, unfortunately I don't have a better example, but Sandra and I spoke this morning, and I said, okay, if somebody wants to put a chicken farm into Sonoma, on the plaza, which I know would be impossible, but if they wanted to do that, they could give.
Chicken farm on the plaza. Yeah.
Well, maybe not today, but thank you. But I will
They
say.
have the law.
Right, and I
They
will
have the
say
law. Yeah.
that I think the number that's mentioned in here is something like $4,900. All I need are two people to give money to my campaign. I don't have to do anything other than that. And I love campaigning. I look forward to campaigns. And I know the hard work that comes with it. I love it. The worst thing about Sonoma is you're campaigning in over 95 degree weather, because it's the late summer. It's terrible. It could kill any normal person. And I know when I ran, a woman told me if I didn't take my husband home, she wouldn't vote for me because he looked like he was going to die. But I'm telling you, so I'm worried about that contribution. If we have a simple issue of enforcement, possibly I don't know how much that would cost to complete that package. I'm so glad that you brought it to us, Sandra, because, maybe that's all we need is to clean up that paperwork. I know during campaigns, and it was suggested this morning, if we go with this state law, that, now we can call the FPPC. My experience, and Sandra's is probably different. But my experience has been, that's the last time you call FPPC. You have to email them during campaigns. So I can't say that they have a commitment, although you have shared that they may be hiring extra people, which I think would be wonderful, but they don't get back to you right away. So that's just always been my experience. I'm at the 400-foot level here, and I would say, I think I'm looking at the part of it that would say the amend what we currently have, if that's the one in the middle, is that right? And I think at that point, this is really all I have to add, other than my experience of actually working, of campaigning here in Sonoma, and it takes a lot of work in hot weather. But I mean, you know, you have to plan your budget for your campaign to see how much it costs, and you go to that level. I do agree with, though, with increasing possibly campaign funding.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just have a quick question back to the enforcement issue. So you're telling me currently, if you take, let's say you take the voluntary expenditure ceiling of $10,000 and you end up spending $25,000 and you just put them on the forms and you put it in and you took the limit, but you spend $25,000 and you're elected, there's nothing you can do about that? I mean,
Chapter 2.02 does not contain any specific enforcement. We would likely default to the general penalty under the Sonoma Municipal Code, in which case you would be essentially fined for an infraction for violating the code.
Has there been historically, have there been issues with this policy?
I would defer to the clerk on
in
that.
terms of, I mean, obviously contribution limits being what they are, you know, so they're low, obviously, but do people generally comply? We haven't had really many FPPC violations.
Since I've been here in Sonoma in almost 6 years, I've had none.
Okay.
Well, and they wouldn't be FPPC violations. Because we've got this ordinance, the FPPC will not enforce our ordinance. They will not enforce a local
Right.
campaign
So
contribution
just
limit.
general
It's up-
campaign irregularities. Well, yeah, okay.
Right.
Thank you.
They'll enforce things like, one thing that did come up, there was some mail that went out that didn't have an address on it and didn't have who had sent it and so forth, and they will investigate things like that, because that is part of their purview on mass mailings, anything over 200 pieces. So they will look at some things.
And so then,
Violations of state law.
and then this was also brought up earlier, but if there's an independent expenditure committee formed, is that what it's called? Independent. Okay. So if a committee was formed to support a certain candidate, can that committee, there's no limits on the contributions, but are there limits on the expenditures of that committee for the help of a certain candidate?
There are not limits on the expenditures. Under our ordinance, it appears that if the committee were to contribute to a candidate, it would be limited by our limits.
But let's say they weren't contributing to the candidate, they were just sending out mailers on their own supporting that candidate. Yeah.
Right, that might be something different.
Yeah, no, an independent expenditure is not, anything they give as a contribution is governed by whomever they give it to, whatever jurisdiction that is. But an independent expenditure committee, they form basically so that they don't have to comply with contribution expenditure limits. And my experience is that, not so much in Sonoma, but in some races it is true. On countywide races, it absolutely happens. But in, San Francisco, for example, Los Angeles, where they actually have very low contribution limits, and everything's an independent expenditure. Everything, because that's where the money can go. So I'm not saying this would happen. Madeline and I had a spirited discussion about whether or not people would actually engage in independent expenditures, but it's becoming more and more prevalent because people, they don't have to comply with the rules. The other thing is that if somebody is has enough wherewithal and they decide, I mean, let's just get away with this expenditure ceiling, but let's say, you know, they're just independently want to spend as much as they want on themselves, they can do that too. And that is governed by a constitutional decision, Buckley v. Vallejo, which said
And that's always been the case.
that has, well, up until that, that court case made it absolutely final. And so that's because that's considered free speech on the part of yourself. So nothing can, you know, we're not going to be able to control independent expenditures. We're not going to be able to control wealthy people who want to spend money on themselves. And we can raise the contribution limit. I don't think, and there's any point in doing anything that's, you know, in kind and hard money, because to me that it's all the same. I think the expenditure ceiling, the fact that like only Santa Rosa has one and they're going to review it, I think that should tell you something right there. But again, my point is that there's all this other stuff that we don't have in our ordinance that we have to add in if we are going to do have our own limits. And we just have to weigh whether or not we want to be, you know, dealing with all that. Because that puts an extra burden on our staff to do all of that work.
Yeah, that is, yeah, I understand. And it's possible for the ordinance we can partially, you know, because right now not a confirmation from the state and then the city. For example, we set up the limit, ceiling limit, and the contribution limit, and by the city, and the rest of them enforcement and the conditions and the terms we can use in the state.
The state will enforce state law, but if we impose a contribution limit that's less than the state max, they will not enforce it. We can't even ask them to enforce it or pay them to enforce it. They just won't enforce it. It's up to the city to do that.
Can you explain what kind of factors under enforcement? The audit or more forms or?
I mean, there's a variety of different methods you could take. Obviously, all of these requirements include reporting, and that's sort of the first line of enforcement is to get the reports. And then if there's somebody out of compliance at that point, you know, we would impose fines, require the money obviously be returned. You know, it could potentially be, it could be made a crime, a misdemeanor. The problem with that is that it's unlikely that the DA would ever want to enforce the city misdemeanor violation, and so it would be up to the city to pay for enforcement, criminal enforcement. So there are certainly a number of obstacles, and the city doesn't have the resources that the state government has when it comes to enforcement.
Candidates using the same form that is in the form 406 or something like that. 46. Oh yeah, 46. Using the same form, right? Okay. Yeah. So that is the trick, very tricky, you know, and I'm afraid that we wanna, you know, completed adopt, you know, conform with the state. The only my concern is in maximum the contribution amount, 4,900. One couple in the family, that is 9,600. You know, this sounds like not good. This is really bother me, and this is totally not in the right fit in the election culture in our small town Sonoma. But $100 definitely is too little, you know. Because right now everything is increasing. Paper right now is increased. A lot of the campaign, and they stopped because the supply chain they broken, and then they cannot find the paper.
Well, also postage
Yeah, postage, yeah.
has gone up a lot since we've done this.
So, yeah, actually, the
It's still, bulk has gone up
the
too.
limit, the 4,900, when it was implemented, it was actually 3,000.
Mm.
That was sometime in the 2000s. And it's become 4,900 just based on the changes in inflation as far as I
Yeah,
understand.
it's you know, everything is gone up.
And the other
more.
point that's worth mentioning regarding enforcement is, I'd have to do some more research into this, but I don't think we can't charge candidates a fee that would cover the cost of enforcement. So that's all money that's going to come out of the general fund.
All right, yeah, more questions.
I guess one of my concern, I mean, this is actually a very interesting issue. I mean, there's obviously a lot of,
It's good.
things to consider here. I noticed on the chart here, Windsor has a contribution limit, $500 for council, $1,000 for mayor, so I am correct because I just Googled this. That's new, and up until recently, Windsor had no contribution limit. And I think we've all read in the news or know about the situation up there where the former mayor of Windsor, I'm just looking at his FPPC, his 460s and all that. Like, he raised $60,000, $70,000, $80,000
Wow.
from significant donations from developers that wanted things to happen in Windsor, et cetera, et cetera. And so I understand the thought process behind removing, just reverting to the state, because I think in a lot of ways there would be benefits to that. But then I also wonder what that could produce in Sonoma. Not to say that would happen, but just 40 minutes or a mile, however far away it is. We saw something happen there, and so I think we should consider the potential consequences of that.
That is right.
I mean, I can't believe how much money. I mean,
Yeah,
and I noticed that and then
I would
he makes contributions to other council members in the area, to build a political base. I mean, I don't want to unleash that.
Well, you can do that now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is not anything new, nor is it proprietary to, the former mayor of Windsor. But, I would argue that our limit right now, honestly, is $800, our contribution limit. Because the expenditure pledge, this unenforceable expenditure pledge would not hold up in court. $800 as opposed to $200, $800 in kind as opposed to $200. I think if I collected $800 from someone and I had $800 worth of printing and somebody wanted to take me to court, I think I'd win by saying those are both contributions because according to the state, they are. So I really think we're at $800. I mean, even though we've parsed it out in some strange way, I tried to maximize as many $800 in kinds as I could get because it was easier than, getting contributions, a little bit at a time. And it's harder, hard to raise money. People like to give money to the library and things like that. They don't give money to candidates. I mean, are you kidding me? It's like last on their list.
Well,
Unless they want something.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to go that way, then
I
mean, listen, we have a gift law in the state of California. It's $520 a year. It is the same law by the state as it is for all of us. And those are the kind of mechanisms that are in place so that people don't go out and buy you a Cadillac or something like that. And those are in place so that people cannot give you bribes, for lack of a better word. We don't have any prohibition on lobbyists giving contributions, whereas the state does. I mean, a lot of people don't know that. They think, oh my God, lobbyists give politicians. They're not even allowed to make a contribution under state law. So if people are really paranoid about all of this, There's a million different things we could do. We could have an ethics commission. Several cities have that. All of this just requires a lot of staff time and diligence on the part of a very small city. My feeling is that the best disinfectant is fresh air. In other words, transparency, which we do a really good job of that, and thank you, Rebecca. I mean, everything is on. I mean, I called up and I said, can I see my opponent's contributions and so forth? Oh, it's all online. Oh, great. Looked it all up. It's all there. It's all there for everybody to see. So everything, as long as things are clear, as long as there's an enforcement mechanism, and as long as there is complete transparency so that everyone can see what people are getting, then I think it is up to the public to decide whether or not those contributions or those expenditures offend them or not. But I think it's, to me, again, I go back to my First Amendment. I think that I don't want to start punishing people for what they might possibly do, you know. I'd rather make sure that we have fair enforcement, fair rules, absolute transparency, post it on the internet, post it wherever, make people aware of what people are doing, because honestly, that's the best disinfectant against anything that might harm us politically. Anyway, that's my point.
All right. If any more question, Bob, you do it? Okay. All right. Let me now open to the public. Any? Yeah. Yes, gentlemen. Roger, right?
Ron.
Ron.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate the wrestling that's going on about this issue. I think it is something to be wrestled about. I ran for state assembly 2 years ago, and dealing with the FPPC filing in Sacramento was, I wish I had someone to hire for that, to do that. I want the council to appreciate the locality of the filing. I mean, the Santa Rosa, the Register of Voters was super. I loved working with them. Sacramento was just over there. It wasn't the most enjoyable thing. So just something to kick around, appreciate the locality of that. I mean, yes, we can learn a lot from the FPPC's rules, and that's important. I don't think any of us want $175,000 city council races here. But just some thoughts from my little bit of experience, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ron. Yeah. Do you have any more comments? Otherwise, I want to close. Bob, do you want to say something?
It's too complicated for me.
Not really.
Checks anyway, so it's
Okay. All right. Yeah, next time, Bob. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you must be very close friends.
That's fine. Yeah, anyway, I learned today, especially from the Sandro today, I learned and the good comments, we should have some the local regulation to follow, otherwise confusing and scare, especially during the election time. It's a lot of the pressure and truly, confusing. But for our local government in a small town, when we make any policies, ordinance, most important thing is we need a thinking, and who is this kind of policy carried out, who carried out. I want to see more young people and the low-income people, and encourage them to participate in the local and the politics, and go into the election is number one, and also financial also is a major concern for the candidates when they thinking about the election. So maybe based on the inflation rate going up and again 100 that is definitely doesn't work, and maybe we can, find out another reasonable, the cover, and also we should encourage small amount of minor thinking. It's very positive. People say, "Oh, you work hard. You are not using the money as a tool, as a leverage for your election." And maybe just like Agrimonte said, she likes to walk during the hot day. That is should encourage, because people know you. The money and the hourly money is green color.
10,000 steps.
Yeah, it's 10,000 steps. I don't want to see just only the green color. I want to see different color, different doors, and come from they talk to you. That is the good environment election culture we needed to encourage when we prepare local and policy.
So may I make a comment?
Yes, sure.
Thank you. So I really, Sandra, I really appreciate your doing this, because it opened everything up to me. I wasn't aware of it, because I'm just a real rule follower. Like you, sir, I ran for the assembly against an opponent they brought out of retirement to kick my butt. I lost 2-1. He used to be Willie Brown's enforcer. That was Lou Pappin, who was a wonderful legislator for our county. But I had to raise, as you said, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I was very lucky to be supported and endorsed by everybody, every council, but I still lost. And that's okay, because that's how we work. But I am more prone to looking at possibly amending what we have. I don't even know what the costs are. I'm hearing they'll be expensive, but I'm personally more afraid than somebody coming in and giving a candidate, a husband and wife, a lot of money because of the state. I personally have worked with the FPPC. I have called them during campaign time. They tell you email me. So those are the things I'm concerned about. When I worked for a U.S. senator or a state senator, I get callbacks. I don't get callbacks from little Sonoma. But I'm really encouraged. I am looking at number 2. I don't know how everyone feels, but I think the valuable part of this, whichever way it goes, we're more aware of what's lacking in our system. And so that's the only thing I'm suggesting.
When would this potential ordinance have to be in place to affect this year's election?
This election.
You may already have individuals that will, they can't pull papers yet, so they can't actually come in and get their nomination papers. But at this time, someone could open a committee already for the 2022. They could come in and do their intention statement. They could already be doing this. No, at this point,
So
no
what
one has
rules apply
declared.
to them?
Right, currently, it's our current rules.
Current, right.
And if I may, just as a side note, even if we amend our code and someone comes in to me as the elections official with questions on their FPPC questions on their particular situation, I cannot advise them. I'm not an attorney. I'm not a tax expert. I'm not. So they will still be referred to the FPPC. All the documents I give out, their website, it says if you have questions regarding, a timeline or a form about the form itself, I can answer those for you, but otherwise you're going to have to contact, because
Right.
everybody's situation is so.
And I have to be very honest, I drive up to Sacramento to FPPC. I don't wait for the phone, I don't email. I go right up there, they send someone out to sit down with you, and they're wonderful. They're absolutely wonderful. So I don't waste my time with the other stuff, because I want to know right now. That's me, you know me, I don't go away.
That is.
So I guess,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, so that's my suggestion, and I.
That's right. Almost.
Yeah. I
almost
think-
everyone want to make some changes.
I
That is-
think that,
yes.
Obviously, I don't think there should be an expenditure limit. I think it's insane to do that. I don't think there's any reason to have two-tiered thing. I'd give, if you're gonna go down that road, let's find out what the contribution limit is, and that's what it is. And then, but my biggest concern is the rest of it, is just, I mean, it's not just the enforcement, but if you look at page 2 of 3 of the staff report, it's, it has to do with the transfer of campaign funds, and so forth. I mean, and establishing new committees and whether, you know, what to do with the funds left over. I mean, all of that, you know, would need to be in the new ordinance in addition to, I mean, the things that are missing, basically. Because they're not, once you establish it, we're really on our own. And so we really have to have something that tells people, because, I mean, right now, I mean, full disclosure, because you can go look it up, I mean, on the, at the FPPC, I closed my committee, I followed these rules, I took the money, I put it in for 2024, which would be when my term is up, and you know, retitled it, because there are used to be you could just transfer it over and just change the name. Now you actually have to close your committee entirely, transfer it over. I had to get a different bank account. I followed every single one of these rules on here and transferred it over, and I'm using this to be, because I have the letter from Jeff Walters saying to do that. But I was nervous because I didn't know what I was allowed to do and not do. And so, you know, I think that all of those things need to be in there so that everybody knows, not just from the, you know, from the beginning to the end to the future, how they're going to manage their accounts and to do it correctly. So I'm fine if people, you know, I'm hearing a consensus that people feel maybe uncomfortable with the state limit. I don't feel uncomfortable with it, but then again, I'm immersed in it every single day, so I'm probably immune to being affected by it. But you know, and I always point out to people, you know, the federal law says you can give something like, I think it's $2,900 in a federal race, and the average contribution to Bernie Sanders was $27. So it, you know, it doesn't matter what the top number is. I mean, and the other thing is, you can always make a pledge. We have an unenforceable pledge right now. You can always make a pledge and say, I'm not going to spend more than $15,000, or I'm not going to accept any contributions from corporations, or whatever. You can always do any of from chicken farm. Oh, I like chicken farmers pretty much, but you know, but you can always do that. I mean, no one's saying that you can't self-impose things on you, and for a lot of people, that's the reason they want to vote for you, because they want you to be a very grassroots sort of a person. But all I'm saying is that if we are going to go with the increased limits, we have to fix the rest of it, because we can't just have, you know, this one-page thing that just, it doesn't answer any of the questions that candidates have. And I don't think my questions were that weird. I mean, you know, because I was a special election, it's not like I had 4, you know, I have 3 years. So it's like, well, I might as well do this now, you know, and you know, if I decide not to run, I decide not to run, but at least there it is, you know. But there was absolutely no guidance available.
If, Mr.
David?
Mayor,
Oh,
I'm sorry, just very
yes.
quickly, if I can, your comment, Councilmember Lowe, about the non-monetary, monetary.
Yeah.
It should be noted that in the other cities, there is no distinction.
Correct.
It's just one, there's not a separation.
According to my attorney, we're the only place in California that has it. That's what he said. So, I like to be unique about some things, being the most historic city in the world. I'm all for that, but let's not have this. This is kind of cuckoo.
David, I have a question. As to those in the parts missing, and from the own city in the ordinance, it's possible, for example, and Sandro just mentioned, after election, those kind of remainers in the fund, how to handle. But totally in out in the city, the ordinance, and no any mention about this, how to, and can we not do like this? If anything the missing part, we can do refer and state like this, or the
Yes.
get some of the reference, you know.
Yes, we could do that. We would essentially adopt those provisions
Yes,
by reference.
partially. Mhm.
With the caveat, again, that the FPPC wouldn't enforce
Force.
any violations of them.
But if they don't enforce, so our city still take this role of enforcement.
Correct.
Yeah. So it
For
doesn't matter.
that, for those
Yeah.
parts. All of these sections, 1 through 7, specifically state this section doesn't apply to a city that has adopted its own contribution limit.
Oh, yeah, that is
So
important.
that's why we can, once we adopt that contribution limit, they're not going to be enforcing that. But we could adopt it by reference, likely. Yeah.
That's good.
Unless
Yeah,
there's other
comments?
questions or comments, I offered something and I just, hopefully, I don't know where people are going.
Do you think you needed to do the more, research or this kind of looks like a hybrid stuff, if out in the city?
If you're suggesting that we take this back and prepare a revised ordinance that eliminates the expenditure cap and that increases the contribution limit, includes provisions related to what to do with funds after the election, et cetera, and enforcement, that's my understanding at this point of the direction. If we've
Yes,
got
that is
from-
correct. That is exactly I want to see that. How about
what would be somewhat helpful is an idea of where that contribution limit would be. So I've heard 800, which is, I don't think, unreasonable given what we've seen from other jurisdictions.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to remember that it's possible, and maybe I'm wrong, but some of these jurisdictions haven't updated them recently and have no plan to change them. That's not necessarily a good indication that those are reasonable contribution limits.
Yeah, you got a chart, reference number. Katati 350, that is the contribution limit. And Cloverdale, no limit, state limit, that is 4,900.
There's two of them that state.
Yeah, Hillsburg 500, Petaluma 200, Ronald Park 500, Santa Rosa 500, Sebastopol state limit, Windsor 500, council 1,000 mayor, Novato 750. From me, I feel comfortable if 500 or.
You're in effect lowering it. We have 800 now. We have 800 now.
Can we get back to the expenditure ceiling? So you said that's not common, but it's voluntary, right? Right. So
Ours is, yeah.
Are voluntary expenditure ceilings common, or
No.
can you not have an involuntary?
I don't think you
expenditure
can
ceiling?
have an involuntary expenditure.
Correct.
ceiling.
And so the only expenditure ceilings that exist have to be voluntary, and even in that case, they're still not common.
Yes, in my experience, yes.
Okay.
I think I did find like Oakland has one, and it depends on the particular, because they have directly elected mayor, but theirs is somewhere, $150,000. So it's very high.
Yeah.
And I guess the other point would be the higher the contribution and or expenditure limit, the less risky it is.
I don't like the contribution limit tied to the voluntary expenditure limit personally. I just think it's very unfair and it's so unenforceable. And right now, the reason I keep going with 800 is we have 800 on the books for an in-kind contribution for somebody who takes the voluntary expenditure. So to me, going backwards is 800 is going less than that is going backwards. And I just know how much things cost. And I honestly believe that there's a lot of people that just don't, they just absorb a lot of these costs. They don't even know that they're spending it because they're not keeping like records of every single thing, which you really should be doing. And things, you know, if you are sending mail to even half the people in Sonoma, you know, 5,000 people,
3 times.
3 times, right? That's exactly what I did. I can guarantee you that's it.
What
There's
would
no more
be-
money.
What would be your estimate of the cost of a reasonable city council campaign in Sonoma in today's, like 25,000, 20?
You know, it really depends. It depends on, first of all, you have to assess your competition, you know, and how much. My competition said they weren't accepting the voluntary expenditure ceiling, so I had to assume, okay, sky's the limit. You know, you don't know, right? So, I mean, all of that is really, you know, totally dependent. You know, there's a lot of places where I've had candidates or issues where it's just kind of like, you know, let's just go down to the Swiss one day. I think we got this thing. And then other times it's like, you know, we're going to have to land the Marines, you know. So I've seen everything in between, but a lot of it is just really dependent on the candidates and the race and everything else. But I'd hate to, the person that gets hurt on these voluntary expenditure ceilings is the person that takes them and then their opponent doesn't, and then they're locked in, you know, and they can't, and under our code, you can't change it. It says once you take it, you can't change it. Yeah. So then, you know, so you don't know, so you come in there and you sign your papers and you pledge not to spend, you know, $10,000, unenforceable as it is. And then your opponents all say, I don't think so. And then there you are, you know, and that's not necessarily helpful to anybody. So I've seen it really backfire. I think everyone went into this whole idea with common cause and so forth, like this is really going to help, you know, democratize things. But the reality is that there's so many ways to go around it with these independent expenditures and extremely wealthy people that, you know, just can do whatever they want, that really who gets hurt is the little guy. So what we're doing is we're making it harder for them by putting all these ceilings and so forth on it, making it harder, and while the rich people, they can just do whatever they want. And so, I don't know, to me, I've seen it really backfire.
So it's really interesting, you were talking about the science of running for office. There's also a thing called name recognition. So anybody new has to come up to the name recognition of the person that's got the name and pass that. So that's what starts to cost money, because you know, as you said, Sandra, you did 3 mailings. Now there's a lot of stuff that's involved. I love campaigning. I just like, you know, I'm like back on the quarter horse race. So I love it. So those things are not a problem, issues for me. But as I said, I offered an issue of going back and looking at what we do, the mechanism of what we do. And I think that's valuable just to examine that. I think I'm very comfortable with that.
And I agree. I mean, I walked every single day, every single day. And I love it. And that's, you know, but there's a lot of people who aren't home. So, you know, mail is an important thing. So, and it's very expensive to do that. And it's gone up. And I had to, you know, dial it way back, you know, but I just don't want to, I know how to do this. I don't, it's not about me. It's not even remotely about me or what I care about. I just want to make it fair. I want everybody to, when they decide to run, that they know what the rules are from beginning to end, and everybody has as much of a fair shot as everybody else. And that they have some assistance so that they, you know, when they have questions, because they're going to have questions, you know, we heard from our former candidate, that we have an ability to help them with their questions. And that's why it sort of appealed to me to go with the state one, because then I know what all the rules are. It's pretty easy, and, you know, we know what they are. But I hear very clearly that that's, you know, maybe too much money. That's fine. let's just make sure we have all of the other things in place so that we can help people.
I agree completely with Councilwoman Lowe, what she just said in terms of it does need to be fair. And if we are going to set contribution limits that aren't with the state, that we do have that all in the ordinance, so it's all there. So I completely am in support of that. You know, in terms of the contribution limit, I don't really know where I'm at that, so I think that's what.
The research.
Well,
Maybe
E
I'm
is
there.
D5. So you were wondering where we were landing on the contribution limits, right? So, are there any ideas on that? Or
Yeah,
that we
maybe
want-
I'm misunderstanding. Here, right now we have the two limits. One is maximum the contribution is $100 for each and the voters, right? 100. Yeah,
If-
100.
Right, 100.
Yeah.
If you don't
So
take the
Is it,
If
San
there's
Sandra?
5 in the family, that's $500.
Yes.
Okay, so
Yeah.
And 400 in non-monetary
Yes.
contribution.
And Sandra, what are your suggestions in the 800?
The reason I said 800 is because right now, that's the top number we have. If you take the voluntary expenditure ceiling and you get an in-kind contribution, it can total $800. So right now, on the books, we have $800. And as I said, a contribution is a contribution, whether it's in kind
Oh,
or
okay.
money, it's a contribution. So I wouldn't want to go south of 800 because that's where we are right now. I don't see things getting more reasonable. I see things getting. I think what's inflation right now? 8%.
but that 800 is with a $10,000 limit. And so if we're getting rid of the limit, then it's
Well, that's
400.
just but that was like an incentive. Like, and
Yeah.
most people took the limit. I think there were, as I remember, Rebecca, correct me. I think you said there was only a couple people in your history that didn't take the limit. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So,
Yeah.
so people
I see.
take it in order to because they want to. But as I said, that all of that can be very much challenged in court.
I-
So let's.
This
We
is
have
very-
800.
This is very complicated. I mean, as I'm
It's
sitting
there.
here, first of all, my first thought is every city council member should be appointed. But, that was a joke. But more seriously, as I'm sitting here, I'm realizing whatever we decide here, this is really going to affect Sonoma city government for the next 10 to 20 years in a good way or a bad way, and we really need to get this right. And so
Yeah.
I'm all for getting it right, but this is actually one of the most significant probably discussions we've had
Yes,
because it's going to
Yeah.
affect the next 20 years in Sonoma.
that is right. And also, Sandra, I misunderstanding that $800. $800, that means combined check donation and also non-monetary.
No, the
Then the
$800 is non-monetary right now, but.
Oh, no, it's the $100 and each in the family.
No, no,
You
no.
know.
No, get rid of the family thing, okay? The
Okay.
family thing doesn't apply.
No,
It's $100 or $400 in kind if you don't take the expenditure limit. It's $200 or $800 in kind if you do take the expenditure limit. So since most people took the expenditure limit, which, by the way, we've already said, non-enforceable, probably not constitutional. So we've really had $800 as the highest point.
Yeah, but $10,000.
but we
campaigns.
can remove that is the expenditure, the ceiling, you know.
Yeah.
You know, whatever, you visit small town, how much money you can spend. You cannot, impossible for you to send over 20 flyers to the house. Definitely you will be lost.
Whatever you guys decide, I mean, obviously you've got to have a comfort zone with it. But I mean, an expenditure ceiling, and you can see they're all getting rid of them, or they're much higher. I don't think you should tie your contribution limits to an expenditure ceiling which is unenforceable and unconstitutional.
So I'm hearing somewhere between 500 and 800. Would it make sense? I mean, we can bring this back and you don't have to make this decision right now. We're just asking for direction. And you can think about that more and we can bring back.
Yeah,
something
bring the
that
back.
Scott
Yeah.
That's the easiest
Yeah,
part
it's
to
easy.
change. The hard part is all this other
Yeah,
stuff.
missing parts, that is the hard part.
I mean-
Yeah, which we need in there, yeah.
So could I ask the city clerk, so you confer with other city clerks, I would imagine, about this language and how they're handling it? And then, of course, there are other avenues. You have our attorney.
We have the clerks in general across the state. We are all very close networked, and SoCal, or the Sonoma County clerks, today there was a couple things that came up, even not regarding this but something else, and immediately I had answers of what the other cities were doing with copies of their ordinances. As far as like the ordinances that are in your chart tonight, or the different cities, I think I have already most of the ordinances that they have in place of theirs.
Okay.
Because that's just, we do. And again, as I said, I am not an expert in campaign finance. Not very many city clerks, usually someone that's a political, a political person, that's what their job is. But I have the ability to get the answers, but again, if it's a legal question, I will be referring you to, that's the practice.
Thank you. So what's the direction?
Direction, yeah, we already mentioned, definitely we will be, all these kind of data should have been updated, when not being higher. For example, the $100 definitely is not right, and the $200 is not right.
So, and then
And
we really
combine
have
it together.
to decide, Mayor Ding, what kind of penalties do you want to impose? Because if you're going to do this, you're going to have to impose penalties, and you better think about. I mean, Rebecca's a wonderful resource because she can bring in what other cities are doing, but now we're going to have enforcement here.
Okay.
And
I
did you
think
say
that-
earlier that the district attorney is probably not going to enforce any of our?
It's, in most
Penalties?
counties, the district attorney doesn't have the resources to spend on a municipal code misdemeanor violation. Potentially something like a campaign violation, maybe that would be sufficiently of interest, but obviously those are prosecutorial discretion.
So a
But that's a
penalty
criminal
would likely,
penalty. I think likely we would
a
want to look
penalty
at
would
the
likely
civil.
be a fine.
Correct, a fine and a requirement that the money be returned, and likely the main penalty is gonna be what happens in the court of public opinion,
Right.
for something like this.
Yeah, that's how. Okay.
Well, thanks.
All right, so we don't need to take some motion or just direction, it's fine, right? Okay.
Well,
Yes.
so do you have what you need? Or?
Yeah, and I can repeat what I understand the direction
Yes.
to be, if that would be helpful.
Thank you.
So we're gonna come back with an amendment to chapter 2.02 that increases the contribution limit, erases the distinction between monetary and non-monetary contributions, gets rid of the expenditure, the voluntary expenditure ceiling, provides for some type of enforcement, and also addresses the issues that we outlined in 1 through 7 of the staff report.
And we can always just plug that number in through further discussion. Right.
Yeah.
Correct, yeah.
So if you come back with something that says 800, we want 1,000 or 2,000 or 500, that's just
Yeah, I
easily-
mean, and it's also
Okay.
worth noting, chapter 2.02 was put in place in 2002. So
Right.
you can go to the CPI calculator and see what
Yeah,
that
$1 in
number is.
2002 is $1.60 today. I already did that.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And it would be nice to know what was in their minds when that was brought forward.
Well, that's a good question. Your point. Yeah.
So I don't know if we have minutes or whatever that, I mean, I'm not interested this second, but it would
Yeah.
be interesting to know what was.
Well, maybe that's something a city historian could tell us.
Yeah, I mean, Rebecca had some information about that already, I think.
Yeah, it's that first line in the staff report is actually where it says, in response to previous council members' worries that campaign spending had begun to get out of control and that local citizens would not be able to afford to run for council. That's specifically that's directly from the minutes. That's what the minutes state. And unfortunately, there's no video to go back and watch.
Thank you.
Any more detail for that direction? Otherwise, I want to move forward to another agenda. No? Okay, thank you. Let's move to agenda number 7. Council members' report and the comments.
I don't have any reports.
Yeah, good.
I attended a Sonoma Clean Power Board meeting on April 7th, and a number of things came out of that meeting. First of all, the Advanced Energy Center is back open again after COVID, and they're encouraging people to visit that to see what an all-electric lifestyle might be like to lower the greenhouse gas emissions in your own household. And they have a very, very elaborate display of all the different kinds of things that you can do to reduce your carbon footprint. So I would recommend that as a visit up in Santa Rosa. They're recommending support for SB 884, which is the electric power line undergrounding, trying to get PG&E to put as many power lines underground as possible. We passed a budget adjustment for a mid-year adjustment that equates to an equal amount to the PG&E bundled customer bills. So it means Sonoma Clean Power is costing about the same as PG&E right now. They are always searching for ways to come up with more clean power at reduced rates, but it's a difficult marketplace right now. There's an integrated resource plan that was reintroduced to evaluate the long-term portfolio strategies to come up with more ways to get clean power. And finally, the strategic action plan was reviewed, which had a number of points in it, but it essentially comes down to going electric, accelerating building efficiency, and reducing the peak demand at certain hours of the day, and looking for ways to have battery storage. So that concludes my report.
Thank you. I have the one report. And last week, Sandra Lowe, Agramonte, and me, and Rebecca attended the county's mayor and council members, the social, the meeting, annual meeting, actually, yeah. We know each other finally open up after the pandemic. That is fun. We know each other, city's situation. Yeah, it's very helpful. And also I attend on the county's groundwater fee set up in the report meeting. And the counseling company, SCI, gave us the report, gave us and the draft copy of the fees for the future. But this is very primary, and it is not encouraged and to share, and because they needed to do more research, what is reasonable. That is my report. All right, and then let's move to agenda number 8, city manager comments and announcements.
So a couple announcements. Friday is Earth Day, and there will be activities at the Friday Farmers Market, Sonoma Ecology Center, and so at the Friday Farmers Market, they'll be have tables about water conservation, proper recycling, and then at the Sonoma Ecology Center, they actually have activities all weekend. And you can go to their website and you can see what all the activities they have planned. On May 19th, we have the Alcalde reception for Steve Page. And we're asking, it's at 6:30, and we're asking for RSVPs. Did I say May? It's May 19th. Yeah. And then the Overlook Trail has reopened, and if you haven't been up there, it looks fabulous. They've put some steps in, and it's just, we had a lot of volunteers up there working, and they've done a great job. And then finally, we have our budget work first budget work session on May 5th. Is it May 5th? Yeah. Yeah, May 5th at 3 p.m., and that is open to the public. So looking forward to that. That's it. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. And also, Sandra, I want to, have the city issue a proclamation to
Yeah.
the Roger. Yeah, that is definitely, yes.
Yeah, we talked about that earlier, Mayor
Okay.
Ding, and just casually but just to put on everybody's radar screen that next weekend, which is the 29th, 30th, I believe, at the Sebastiani Theater will be some exciting and fun events to commemorate 30 years of Roger Roten being the manager of the Sebastiani Theater. And if people would like to come, especially on Saturday for the roast part, followed by the Big Lebowski movie, I will be making a fool of myself on stage at the Sebastiani. I'm sure this is selling tickets. I hope everybody's watching out there. And along with my former colleague Bob Gossett, also known as Elwood Cruz, we'll be roasting Roger Roten, and then of course watching the Big Lebowski. So, but there's all kinds of events, and there's dinner and delicious dishes doing that, and there's all kinds of cool stuff going on. So, and then we'll come back in May with something special, a commemoration of some kind for Roger here.
That's great.
Which would be great. Yeah.
For the May, I have the, request for proclamation for Asian Pacific Island, the Heritage Month. I received a request, not a formal, the informal phone call from the Sonoma County Asian Pacific Island an association nonprofit. Ask us if it's possible. We issued a proclamation in the May, and also they got the same proclamation from the Ronald Park. So now I think we should do this. Yeah. Mm. Do you have any other?
The city attorney?
Yeah. All right. Okay, let's move to agenda number 9, city attorney comments.
I think you've heard enough from me this evening, so I have no report.
That's great. Agenda number 10, adjournment. If any, you want to?
I guess before my adjourn, I think I'd like to welcome Mr. Berger. I shared with him his parents, loved by everybody here. And so we welcome you.
Yeah. Thank you, welcome. Yeah. All right, yeah, thank you everyone. Have a good night.